I'm just saying, you can have to shoot him anywhere where the kids never have to know about it.
But then they have to, I still think they...
Dad could just leave one day and not come back and they could just live in Bobby's forever. I'm just saying, Bobby.
That's also a huge trauma though, KJ. I think them knowing where he is, knowing that he just doesn't have custody is actually the best option.
My name is KJ, and you're listening to the Supernatural Opinions podcast, where some things in this world are supernatural. My pronouns are she, they, and this is the podcast where I talk to my fellow Supernatural fans about Supernatural, and we share our supernatural opinions.
Today I'm being joined by my guests, Meredith, August, and Beth. Meredith, remind everyone who you are.
Hey, my name is Meredith. My pronouns are she and her, and I don't have any notes, so I'm just going to wing it today.
Yes, that's the energy we're bringing.
I'll probably Google something during the mythology section. We'll see.
If you pretend you know what you're talking about, then it's fine.
There we go.
Confidence is key.
Oh, yes. That's what I do every day of my life.
And August, you've been here before, but remind everyone who you are.
Yes, hi, I'm August. My pronouns are they, them, and I am one of the hosts on Saving People Queering Things, which is kind of a sister pod to this pod. I'm very excited to be back. You may have heard my name as Abigail on previous episodes that I've been on, but that's who I am.
You're also my co-host on Wayward Parents, our Winchesters podcast.
Yes. Oh yeah, I don't know why I forget that. It's
our thing that we do together.
We do so many things together at this point that I can't keep it straight.
Does it not matter to you anymore?
We're in hiatus.
Yeah, we're on the break.
Yeah, I think that's true. That's probably honestly what threw me off more.
Beth, this is your first time with us. I was remind people who you are, but people don't know who you are. Tell people who you are.
Yes, no problem. Okay, I'm Beth. My pronouns are she, her, and I co-host Raising Perdition, which is also a Supernatural Rewatch podcast. And then I also co-host Raising Winchesters, which is a Winchesters podcast. So
yeah, we've become friends because we like all the same stuff.
Yep. We like something, we make a podcast about it, and then we make friends who also like something and make podcasts about it.
I'm going to info dump and then record it, and you guys can just choose to listen to it.
And Beth, just for some context, when did you start watching Supernatural, approximately?
I started watching Supernatural in September of 2021, and Excellent. I finished it before October ended. I watched it in about 3.5 weeks.
Wow, that is quite quickly.
Are you okay?
Something I didn't know was possible until I heard that story the first time.
Yeah, if you asked if I was okay, probably not.
No.
I was just completely obsessed.
Wow.
Completely obsessed with it. It really did just change my entire life.
I thought I was a good binge
impressed.
watcher, but that is even, I think, beyond my my skills. That's impressive.
Yeah, it's so impressive. Very mentally ill, but that's fine.
I like that you watched it so quickly and then immediately decided to make a podcast about it.
Right. So my co-host Hannah, or one of my co-hosts Hannah, she at the just a few weeks after I had finished it was like, I'm watching the show because my sister likes it, but I don't think I can get through it. She'd only watched 2 episodes and it was Supernatural, and I was like, oh my god, you have to keep going. Because I didn't know anyone who watched it and I wasn't in fandom. I just got a few TikToks, which is why I tried it. I got 3 vague TikToks and I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm gonna watch this show.
Insane decision, by the way. To
Insane
see TikToks, to see Supernatural TikToks, and then be like, I'm gonna watch this 15-season long show.
Yes,
this silly, interesting show.
And then in February of not even 2021, we decided to make a Supernatural podcast in the year of 2022. It's just
that is incredible. I actually didn't know any of that, so that was all new information for me.
This is fascinating.
The origin story.
I've been letting August make all my new friends for me, so I don't have to ask any of this questions.
Oh man, I should outsource. That's such a good idea.
Outsource your friends.
Beth and Jamie yesterday, when we were recording, called me the gateway friend.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a moniker I'll take.
Accurate, honestly.
Yeah, it sounds better than being a gateway drug. It's like maybe you're leading them to nice things.
That's the hope.
Fingers crossed.
Let's see. This week we're recapping season 3, episode 10, Dream a Little Dream of Me, which originally aired on February 7th, 2008. And that title is a reference to the song that was originally released in 1931. It was made really popular later, I think in the 60s by the Mamas and Papas, but we'll get to that later. When it appears in this episode. This week's episode will contain spoilers for this episode, may reference previous episodes, but will not contain spoilers for later episodes of Supernatural. Just a note on that. It might contain some mentions of the Winchesters, so if you're not caught up on the Winchesters, there could be some minor spoilers happening. This episode felt like it belonged in the Winchesters, / maybe the Winchesters did some borrowing. And this is the first time we've recorded an episode where I was like drawing parallels like that, but
Cool. Excited to hear them.
this is a good crowd to be doing that with, I think.
We are ready.
Yeah, this episode was written by Sarah Gamble and Katherine Humphries and directed by Steve Boyum. Sarah last wrote on 307 Fresh Blood, which was our Gordon episode, and Katherine Humphries last directed on, I didn't write the episode number. Hold, please. Gotta pull up IMDb.
We're doing great, guys.
Yes, I literally wrote on, and I had the IMDb open, and I just didn't write a number in there.
I'm just gonna let you do everything.
Yes, I mean, it is literally like my one job that I'm supposed to do.
Oh, I didn't do my one job, so I figure why start now?
Okay, we're trying so hard. You just keep opening Supernatural. I don't want you to open Supernatural. I want you to open the specific episodes of Supernatural. The new IMDb is not user-friendly. Katherine Humphries last wrote on 305 Bedtime Stories, which is why I probably didn't write it, because I went, that's not memorable. And my brain just, like, blocked it out.
Fair.
Back to what we're doing here. Steve Boyum was our director this week, and his only previous time directing was season 2, episode 8, Crossroad Blues, which was like a whole season ago. But a good episode, like an important episode. So like this one's also great. I think this was well directed. We're gonna go right into our episode ranking. Meredith, what would you like to like rate this episode? Do you remember anything about this episode?
I do. Maybe I'll give it like a 6.5.
Okay.
I liked it and I do enjoy it, and it has Bela in it, and it's just not extremely, like, it doesn't stand out to me very much.
That's fair. You're allowed to think that. August, how about you?
Give it a 4 out of 5. I really love this episode. I think I always have a really soft spot for this episode, especially for like, I think like as a whole, I think it's good. I think there's a couple of scenes in particular that are like fundamental to particularly Dean's characterization. I think that pushes it up in my ranking.
Fair. Beth, how about you?
I also gave it a 4 out of 5, just very similar to August, like the Dean characterization, also just like lighting choices. Like there's just a lot in the episode that I like to think about, and so it just makes it a little bit more high up for me.
That's great, honestly. I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. I think it's a great episode. It ties into some like big canon threads. It calls back to some previous episodes, like some good Bobby and Dean stuff. A few things I think that the Winchesters specifically went on to use that I have later in my notes. Like one scene in particular that I'm not a fan of, but we'll get there. I think it's fine. I just don't think it needed to be here, so I don't like it. But overall, 8.5 out of 10. Death count. This week we're gonna see one death, bring our on-screen total to 233, and the on and off-screen total for this episode, I believe, is 3. And so that total is 1,407 plus.
Yeah.
Wow.
Before we even get into our recap, but before we got even into the episode itself, there's like a little recap at the start of the episode, and they have audio of Dean saying, "Dad's gone, we have to carry out his legacy." And they show John's headstone, but it's like the fake headstone from Dean's wish verse, because real John doesn't have one, but like his wish verse headstone always makes me laugh because it reads like a loving father. And
Yeah, it's because it's a load of bullcrap.
Yeah, it's fake.
Yes, we flinch at that.
It is fake. It is not real.
That's also really funny when you think about like Dean's perception of John, like, you know, how that's shifting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a choice.
This episode immediately starts with Bobby, so points for that. Bobby is the cold open this week.
Bobby is the loving father.
And he appears to be in his own home, wandering with a flashlight, when he's tackled by a woman, and then we get a flash of Bobby asleep, and then Bobby's in a motel, and the maid comes in, and she's like about to leave because he's sleeping, when she like gets a bad feeling about it, and she like tries to wake him up, and he won't wake up, and that's bad. We don't like that. Because we love Bobby here. We then cut to a bar where Long Train Runnin' by the Doobie Brothers is playing, and I expected to see Gene drinking because this is an up-ish song, especially especially compared to Bobby, like being in danger. But it's just Sam, and he's not drinking so much as he's just like moping. Like he's already drunk, and he's like staring at his drink like it's gonna talk to him if he just like mopes at it hard enough.
Maybe it will give me advice.
And Dean comes in and he's just like appalled. He's like, you're completely drunk. It's 2 p.m. Like, what are you doing? And Sam's just like, I'm sad and I'm having big feelings and I'm not going to be able to save you. And I don't think Ruby can save you. And no one actually can unless you want to be saved. And I don't think you want to be saved, which, you know.
These are accurate observations.
Yeah, I mean, Dean's like being like, well, if you save me, you die. So that kind of takes us back.
Yeah, Dean's been saying that for 10 episodes now, that he doesn't want to be saved.
Yeah, this is not new information.
I'm like, wow, Sam, I'm so glad you got drunk and finally came to the realization that Dean's been telling you something this whole time.
for almost a year.
Been saying it.
Rather, like, he's now accepting it.
Yeah, we're on episode 10 of 16, and Dean has not wavered once on his wishes.
And, like, Sam has a hard time accepting that, and apparently it takes alcohol for him to accept it.
Apparently, but Sam's, like, moping is just kind of, like, interrupted, because Dean gets the call that Bobby's in the hospital, and they get the doctor's really healthy, aside from the fact that he's in an inexplicable coma, and without a cause, they can't treat it, because went to sleep and never woke up is not a thing. It's not a medical thing.
Yeah, you basically, they're like, we will wait it out. If we don't know anything, we don't want to medically intervene. We might make it worse.
I mean, they could be a little more curious. They could do something, I feel like.
Give them a shot of adrenaline. That always works on TV.
They're like, we can't do anything immediately. Like, we have to wait and see what happens for a little bit first.
So Sam and Dean go to the motel room that Bobby was staying in and try to figure. They're like, clearly he was on a hunt, and this is the result. Like, let's figure it out. And there's nothing in there until Sam opens the closet, and there's a hunter-murderer board behind Bobby's flat shirts.
Why did nobody look at this?
Right.
Like, I think you would assume someone random in the hospital in a coma, like...
Check and see if they're, like, ingested something or come in contact with something, test their clothing. I don't know.
And in the closet where the clothing is, you will also see the investigation wall.
Like, that wouldn't be a good thing for Bobby. Like, that wouldn't be a good thing to get more professionals involved, but it does seem like the responsible thing.
Yeah.
For the professionals.
All right. Well, this will definitely be mentioned at the firing squad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we're going to get yelled at by some, like, EMS worker who's like, we don't have time to go through your
Oh, no, I'm not saying them. I'm just saying someone afterwards. Like, police probably should be looking.
Yeah, I feel like
once he's out of the room and in the hospital, you can investigate.
The EMTs to do. The EMTs, that's not their job.
They have enough to do.
If someone is mystery unconscious with no apparent cause, maybe the police should be called. I hadn't even thought of that, but you're totally right.
Investigation of some kind to be like, is there foul play in any way?
Yeah.
He could have been poisoned.
Exactly. But there's a neurologist who also died after going to sleep and never wake up. And they're like, that sounds like what Bobby's got. And Dean's like, I'm going to check out what that guy was doing. You read this and see if there's anything in there that will tell us anything. And Dr. Greg was doing secret experiments about sleep that his like lab assistant, grad student, and the like university board didn't know about. That's a big no-no. Secret lab experiments, especially on people, on students. Like that's
like
very unethical. Yeah, like
it's a
very unethical.
Bit of a red flag.
That's like a scandal waiting to happen.
Oh yeah.
I mean, yes, it's a scandal, but also here in TV world, it makes him a mad scientist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the grad student just like gives Dean all the research because he threatens her, which is like obviously a baseless threat because he's not really FBI, but
but he's convincing.
She doesn't know that.
Yeah, good thing she didn't like call his bluff or anything and like agree to go down to the station. He really bluffed his way out of that one.
But she knows that she's like she's trying to save her own ass.
Yeah.
So she's like, I know I was involved in this shady.
Yeah, she's in a bad position.
She's like, you're offering me a way out? Great. Here you go. Let me like pretend I never worked on this project.
I gotta get this degree.
Right, because she's already talked to a lawyer. She's like, listen, I know that this is a bad thing.
I know the optics of this are not great.
Dean goes to meet one of the test subjects, Jeremy, and he has a beer with him, and Jeremy has this disorder where he can't dream, which is like, I think the most accurate description of what Charcot Wilburn syndrome is, but like, it's the best TV description of it. It's definitely like a symptom, but like, also I think usually like includes the ability to like recall images when you're awake as well sometimes, but it's usually caused by some sort of brain damaging incident or like a tumor or sometimes like Alzheimer's, like there's brain damage involved. So that's not great for Jeremy.
No.
Yeah, he claims bike accident. He was in a bike accident and he hasn't been able to dream since, and he was given this gross tasting tea by Dr. Greg, and then he had a really intense dream, and then it was like acid trip and it scared him and he dropped out of the study, is what he tells Dean. Later we're gonna learn that none of that is true.
We'll come back to him.
I wrote it like it was a fact because I honestly forgot the outcome of this episode.
That is funny at that part where like Dean's like, oh yeah, an acid trip. I mean, no, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that feels like. I'm like, Dean, have you done acid?
Oh, Dean's absolutely done acid before, and
I want to know the
Jokes about
circumstances.
His 90s era was wild.
Oh yeah, we know that boy was high and on acid. He was trying all the things. That's when Sam's off at Stanford, that's what Dean's doing.
Stanford
I
era.
mean, let's be real. If he's using alcohol to forget his problems, he's definitely experimented with other substances.
Dean and Sam then go back to the hospital to be with Bobby, and Sam's starting to like put the pieces together, and he's like, it's a little weird, but I learned a lot about African dreamer today, and here's what I learned. It's used for dream walking, and it's like pretty serious stuff. Like if you practice at it, you could like dream weave. And Sam says to become, quote, a regular Freddy Krueger. And I'm going to tell you a little Freddy Krueger anecdote. Even though my mom is definitely going to listen to this at some point, we're adults now. I've always kind of had a fascination with like, you know, like kind of darker things. Like I like ghost stories and true crime, and I went to school for criminal justice. Like that's kind of my vibe.
We're on a supernatural podcast.
Yeah, but I don't like horror movies at all. Give me nightmares, and they always have. And when my brother and I were kids, we would go to our grandparents, and we'd be allowed to play on the computer and like watch YouTube videos. And we had dial-up internet until 2015, so like we didn't have that at our house. But there used to be this one particular video we would watch, and it was a YouTube compilation of Freddy Krueger killing people. And we didn't watch this like once. This was something we watched regularly. I don't know why. I don't think I've ever actually watched a full Nightmare on Elm Street movie from start to finish, but I have seen this.
Was it like set to a fun song or something?
I don't think so. I think it was just the clip. I think it was just like someone was like Freddy Krueger's like scariest death in Nightmare on Elm Street. Like
that's really funny.
Interesting.
So I went back today and I found the video. I'm pretty sure it was posted 10 years ago, so I'm pretty sure it's the same one. And like when I clicked on it, it literally came up with like a content warning, and I had to agree that I wanted to watch it. That was not in place when I was a kid. And also for my mom, I swear that this was a major anomaly. Usually we watched music videos like the Gummy Bear song and played age-appropriate like computer games. I don't know how we got here, but this was something we would do like regularly, was watch this one particular Freddy Krueger death video.
This is so deeply amusing to me.
Anyway, I'm gonna link that video in the episode description for this. Anyway, in case you don't know Freddy Krueger, he kills people in their dreams, and if you die in a dream, you die in real life, is like the premise of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies.
And the actor who played him is in an episode of this show later.
I did not know that. That's
What?
really fun.
Oh yeah.
I forgot that entirely.
I also forgot that.
Oh, well, we're gonna stumble upon that in a few seasons.
Yes, I'm sure we'll get there.
Yeah.
Sam's like, okay, I get all of this, but I'm not really sure how/why Bobby is still alive. And I'm like, Sam, I feel like the answer should be obvious. Like, you know Bobby. Bobby's not just gonna die like anybody else.
Bobby's not a random person. Bobby's a hunter. Like, if Bobby's involved in this, chances are, like, knows what you know.
He is a fighter. He's a survivor. Currently, because then we flash to Bobby. Bobby is running and literally screaming for help. But, like, he's not dead, is the important thing.
He is fighting back.
Yeah, he is not going to die without, like, putting up a real fight about it. So they're not really sure where to start from there, like, how to help Bobby. And then Sam makes an offhand comment that usually right about now they would call Bobby and ask for help. And that makes Dean go, yeah, you're right. So let's get some Dreamer and talk to Bobby. Like, that is the next step.
insane idea.
Love that it kind of works.
Back in like season 1, in Phantom Traveler, which is episode 4, Sam like wasn't sleeping and he was having nightmares about being on the job, and like Jess had just died, and Dean was like, "You can't let the job bother you so much." And like I always thought Dean was just kind of like bullshitting Sam, like, "No, I definitely don't have nightmares." But like this conversation made me go, like, maybe as a general rule, Dean is not having the volume of nightmares that we all expect him to be having, because he just casually suggests that they go into Bobby's nightmares.
Or is this more of a question of like, I feel like Dean is just reckless. Like
Yeah.
Dean, like Sam has thought about the consequences. He's been like, it's a nightmare. Here go, it's gonna be bad. Dean's like, we gotta talk to Bobby. Like, what happens?
Nightmare be
Fight
damned.
through that nightmare. We've had worse.
Just like the way that Dean just like looks at Sam, who has like up to this point like not even as bad as it gets, but like Sam is a chronic nightmare haver, and just goes, "Bobby, how bad can it be?" And Sam without hesitation goes, "Bad."
Of course it's gonna be bad.
Sam has this look on his face for a minute, and I'm like, that is the Sam we have not had enough of this season, because Sam has been downright scary in season 3.
Mm-hmm.
But this Sam is simultaneously the math of all the horrible things that they've seen, and multiplies it by the fact that Bobby's been a hunter longer than either of them have really been alive.
Yeah, and that they know he's lost people. Like they know that he's lost significant people to him. They don't know the details, but until this episode, but they know.
And I think Sam also does some math about like what would happen if they went into Sam's nightmares, and is like, that's not great.
It's like, it's not far if we go into someone's nightmares that we're going into everyone's nightmares. And this is
Everyone's gonna take a turn.
And then Sam and Dean have an exchange, because Sam goes like, "Okay, well, we don't, like, okay, fine, like, I can't think of a better idea, but like, we don't have any African dream route." And Dean goes, "Crap." And Sam goes, "What?" And Dean goes, "Bela." And then Sam goes, "Bela? Crap. You're actually thinking about asking her for a favor?" It is.
I have this written down in my notes because it's my favorite exchange of the entire episode. Just the way they like say the same 2 words practically over and over again. Ugh.
having the same realization of like, oh, this is the best solution, but oh, it's gonna suck.
We are going to
bad.
pay for this.
Yeah. And then we go from that immediately into Sam's sex dream, which I remembered happened in season 3, but I didn't remember happened in this episode of season 3.
I don't,
Freaking nowhere. Like,
I don't understand it.
It was weird. It was uncomfortable.
it doesn't make any sense that he would be having a sex dream about Bela. Like, it makes no sense.
What is happening?
Like, they have no moment like that.
It makes no sense. They've barely interacted. Every time they have interacted, it has been just complete contempt and disgust on Sam's part. Like, no indication.
She is not the type of person that Sam usually goes for. Like, she's not the type of girl that we've seen Sam go for. We've seen him go for, like, Jess and Madison, and, like, we've seen him go for not women like Bela.
Yeah.
It would have been less out of the blue if Dean was the one having the dream, but
No, it is-
actually,
it is
actually,
Sam.
I kind
not
of want that because that would have been
blinked an eye.
funny.
Well, and they have that flirty back and forth in Red Sky at Morning, the whole, like, you know, don't objectify. Like, that would have made so much more sense.
And also, it would have been really, really funny to see him waking up and be like, "Oh no!"
In Red Sky and Morning, Bela suggested that they have angry hate sex when they were done. and they didn't.
So honestly, they missed the opportunity to give us a sex dream
Anyway.
where Dean's being manhandled by Bela. It would have been great. It would have been, so
great. We
so
missed
funny.
it.
And he would have been freaked out because he's realizing how much he wants that.
Just to recap Sam's sex dream in like the least amount of detail possible, Bela shows up at their motel room. She's wearing a trench coat and lingerie underneath, and then they have sex. Like that is the dream. Sam then wakes up. He's like literally drooling, which I mean, fair. I drool when I sleep, no matter what I'm dreaming about. But like Sam just wakes up. He's like covered in drool. He's a little ashamed. Dean clearly knows he just had a sex dream, and he's very amused about it. Very amused. Dean says that he called Bela, and Bela just declined to help them. Just wasn't interested. But Dean makes a really offhand comment then about how he's having trouble reading the notes from Dr. Greg, and he's like, "Come help me." And he's like, "This guy's writing's even worse than Sam's." And I feel like it's worth mentioning that for anyone who may or may not be watching the Winchesters right now, and hopefully also listening to August and I do a podcast about it, or Beth, whichever podcast you want to listen to.
Or both.
Yeah, or
Yeah,
both.
just listen to both.
Both.
Listen to both.
More the merrier.
Fun fact that we learned in the Winchesters, Sam's messy handwriting is something that he has in common with his grandfather, Henry Winchester. The fate of the world was very, very perilously in place of Henry's ex-wife, Millie.
How can we interpret interpret the chicken scratch that is Henry Winchester's handwriting.
And Henry's ex-wife read his handwriting in time to save the world.
Oh gosh, during the one episode where we saw Henry Winchester, I had such a huge crush on him, and that just makes me like him even more.
I mean, this is not the only time I brought up the Winchesters, but I was like, oh, that's a fun thing that they have in common.
That's cute.
Because neither of them are people who I would peg as having super bad handwriting, but I like that they do.
And we've seen Dean's, and Dean's is pretty normal.
Yeah. We haven't seen much of Sam's handwriting, but I feel like
No.
Jared strikes me as someone who does have messy handwriting, even though Sam does not. So I feel like maybe they were just like, let's just give Sam messy handwriting because Jared can't write neatly.
I think it's like a stereotype for intellectuals to have messy handwriting.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
also true.
Too
It's like they're
chaotic.
writing too quickly to be neat about it.
That's how I justify my own penmanship.
One thing I wanted to just talk about is when Dean is asking about Sam's dream, and he's like, Angelina Jolie, and he's like, no, and he's like, Brad Pitt, he's like, that's
a
very
natural progression.
yeah, he's like, that's a viable option. Like,
Yes.
Especially when you're Dean.
Yeah.
yes, he's like, I totally would.
Like both of them.
And so in Raising Perdition, we're starting to get into season 3, and we just watched 3x1, and Dean makes that awfully timed joke about what's in the box, and it's a Brad Pitt line for 7. And so I'm like, okay, so Dean Winchester has a crush on Brad Pitt.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That boy does.
No, I don't know why I didn't even put that in my notes, because I absolutely should have, because I have big thoughts on Sam's sexuality, and this is one of I would say the main scenes that would maybe argue against that, but it's all good. It's all good. I think honestly, I think that the dream is fine. I just don't think it serves any purpose in this episode.
And it doesn't super make sense with Bella.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense
Yeah.
with Bella,
No.
especially because we're this is our 4th time seeing Bella this season.
And she's an antagonist, and that's not generally what we've seen Sam be interested in.
And also, we've seen her have great chemistry with Dean since the first time that they met her.
I don't understand why it's in there.
They just wanted to be comedic, and I think that's Supernatural in general.
It
And some of
serves
the early
no
seasons.
plot purpose whatsoever.
No.
Dean's come help me with this, and Sam's yeah, I'll come help you in a second, but he's got a bit of a boner post-dream, which, fair. But he's sort of saved when someone knocks on the door, and Dean gets up to answer it, except for that the person who's knocking on the door is Bella.
Also, how did she get there so friggin' fast?
She must have been they're in Pittsburgh, and Bella is located in New York, so I guess it's not that far.
Fair, and she's wealthy. She could have chartered a private plane to get her there quickly.
I just assume that Bella is good. Also, we don't know really how long it's been that they've been in the motel room. We do find out it's 2 a.m, so who knows when Dean called her. She might have just been driving all this time, but she's in a different trench coat than the one in Sam's dream, and Sam's watching very intently as she's taking it off to reveal that she's wearing not just a shirt, but a shirt that has full sleeves. It goes all the way to
A
the wrist.
sweater. It's practically a sweater.
Yeah, it goes to the wrist. There's not even a hint of arm. It is not lingerie.
And Sam's dumb brain being
Yeah.
what's gonna happen when she takes
What
her
if-
jacket off?
He's just
You just had a dream, buddy.
What would you have done if there was lingerie under that trench coat?
Your
I
brother
would've
was
run
literally
away.
in the room. Also,
Yeah,
your
he's like-
brother's what do you think was gonna happen?
Also, you hate each other. She literally
Right.
shot you 2 or 3 times. She shot you, and since then she sold you out to Gordon. Remember when you had to
Who
kill
tried to
Gordon?
kill you?
Yeah, I don't know. I would have run away and let Dean deal with her, and I'm sure he would have.
They just don't like each other. But it's fine. Bella's I did not have a change of heart over the 2 of you. I'm here for Bobby. He saved my life once in Flagstaff, and she refuses to provide any other information and insists that she's going to do the dream route thing with them. And they're both no, we wouldn't let you drive in our car. We're not letting you in our surrogate father's
Root
head.
around in our no.
And she just sort of accepts that somehow.
I feel like she knew that was a long shot. She had to know that there's no way they were. She had to say it, but
And Dean's go get a room of your own, even though it's 2 a.m, and Sam's really awkward about it. But it's fine. We're just gonna skim over it because I don't like how awkward he is. Usually I find Sam being awkward really cute, and I think that Sam being awkward is a fun part of his character, but the secondhand embarrassment is bad.
We know what preceded this.
Dean's very clearly had an acid trip before based on how he prepares for this dream route scenario. But he is really put off when Sam adds Bobby's hair to their tea, and clearly the tea tastes really bad, hair or not. But I just the texture of adding hair to the tea is bad. Couldn't we have, I don't know, steeped the hair or something? Like,
At least snip it up so it's not like long hairs.
yeah, in just the hair. And that
I try very hard not to think about this whenever I watch this episode.
Yeah, and I fail every time.
Because I have a really strong gag reflex, like for like medication or like any texture-y things. And so
I like textures.
Especially hair.
Yeah, no.
Ugh.
But at first they don't really feel any different, but then Sam's like, when did it start raining? And then Dean goes to the window, he's like, when did it start raining upside down? And then they turn around and they're in Bobby's house, but it takes them a minute to like recognize that it's Bobby's house because it's not full of like books and papers. It's kind of empty. And like, I'm like, Bobby should have taught me as a like child because I recognized this room by the wallpaper. And like Sam and Dean took a second.
They're just not observant.
What's fun, especially since like they, I mean, maybe like we know they knew Bobby like when they were younger. So like theoretically they've seen this house when it was like closer to this state. Like this is obviously before their time, but you'd think I feel like it would be super disorienting though to like, I don't know if you've ever had a dream, like I had a dream like literally this week where I was like in my childhood house and it does take a second to be like, oh yeah, I know everything, but also like it's different.
My parents still live in my childhood house. So like I was just a week ago.
I don't know. I haven't lived in my childhood house in over a decade, and
like same.
I always recognize the basement in the dreams. We had a really creepy basement. I'm pretty sure it was haunted.
Oh no.
They finally realize that it's Bobby's, and Sam's like, I'm gonna go look outside, like you stay in here. And Sam goes outside and the house is not in the junkyard that we know. It is like surrounded by this like nice garden. It's a nice day outside. The house is bright blue. Like if Bobby's house is blue, but it's not like blue.
I hadn't thought about this because this color scheme is going to like this color scheme is a specific like color scheme that's going to reappear to like signify you're not in like regular present reality, like you're in some
everything is way too bright and like
way too bright.
Like the contrast is turned way up and the like chromatic like it's just turned way up.
Yeah.
Which I like because I like the mental signifier, visual signifier.
It's like, it's not real because it looks like a Disney movie.
That's too bright, too colorful.
I would love to just like put this outside of Bobby's house, a scene besides like any scene from season 1 of Supernatural.
It would
so
be
bright.
blinding, just jarring.
Also, the birds chirping are so loud. Which in the song that's like for the title of this, like there's a line about birds chirping in sycamore trees, and I'm just like, is that why we're making the birds so loud?
I think making the birds that loud kind of alludes to like this is not a real world and it's kind of an uncomfortable world.
It's actually it like hurts to look at because the contrast is like up and the brightness is up.
This is like forced brightness.
It's trying too hard to be idyllic and trying too hard to mask that it's not a nice place.
Yeah, all the flowers are like red, orange, like they're really bright. Bobby's Chevelle is like fixed up and it's parked on the street. And like Sam is like in a state of shock for a second to the point that the door slams behind him and locks him out before he can like be like, this is not right. But it's fine. We just don't need Sam here. Sam's just going to be like not involved in the plot in this episode.
Until the end where he becomes very important for like 2 seconds.
Yes, for like 3 seconds. Dean finds Bobby locked in a closet, which is, I mean, ironic. We're going to get to a later episode in a couple seasons where Bobby gets locked in this closet for an actual monster reason in real life. But Bobby's locked in the closet and he doesn't have any interest in listening to Dean tell him that this is just a dream because Bobby's wife Karen is out to get him. And this is when we learn about Karen.
So sad.
Karen, is Bobby's wife, and she is demanding to know why Bobby stabbed her to death. And Dean is trying to get Bobby to like go, but Bobby's like trying to explain to Karen that she was possessed, and he didn't know anything about hunting back then, so he had to kill her. He couldn't like exorcise her. Sam is like wandering through the garden, which I have dubbed in my notes Karen's garden, because I just assumed that if their garden ever did look like this, it was completely Karen's garden, and that's why it no longer exists now.
Yeah, it's obvious that like a lot of the like small tasks for upkeep kind of fell by the wayside after she died. Like maintaining a garden is a lot of work, and Bobby was probably dealing with grief and his business,
and also ghouls,
being a hunter.
Sam is just wandering through a garden and he gets whacked by a baseball bat.
Sam
Rude.
Winchester concussion count.
Yeah, he doesn't get knocked out, so it's not a knockout. I think he gets hit like in the arm, I think, at first.
But it's
And
not
he falls
comfortable.
down. Yeah, not great still. And it's Jeremy, the test subject guy, and he also killed Dr. Greg. And Dean is trying to tell Bobby, like, you're like a father to me, and I need you to take control of this dream and wake up. And Karen's like stops screaming and pounding on the door, and Dean opens the door and she's gone. And it's a good time for Bobby to be waking up because Sam is about to get his head bashed in with a baseball bat when Bobby wakes up, and all three of them like wake up super violently, sit bolt upright, all at the same time.
Oof, I've had that kind of wake up before from like a
It's
nightmare.
not
It is
good.
the worst.
No.
That like feeling like you've just been like thrown back into your
Yeah.
body, like
Mhm.
ugh, viscerally horrible.
Maybe the nightmare followed me. That kind of wake up.
Dean is then like immediately goes to visit Bobby, and Sam goes to find Jeremy. And Dean like asks Bobby if the Karen stuff was real, like if that actually happened. And Bobby's like, yeah, we all get started somehow, like that happened. And that's horrible. I feel so bad for Bobby.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talk about like John's like trauma of like seeing Mary die, but like Bobby having to actually like kill his wife, like that's horrible.
Bobby killed his wife, and then he became a hunter, and he found out that he didn't have to kill her. Like he could have exercised her if only he knew how.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that also like gives us some more context for like season 1 with Meg, and like his insistence on like there's a person in there like
Mhm.
makes so much more sense
So
when you
much
know
more
that
sense,
like
yeah.
he knows the cost if you don't know what you're doing.
And also, like, Bobby's the knowledge guy, because he didn't have that knowledge, and then he had to kill his wife, and I just feel so bad for
And
Bobby.
it's interesting because he wouldn't have known what was going on, as we mentioned, but also, can we imagine like the thought process that led to him finally thinking like, I have no other option but
No
to
other
kill
option.
this
Oh my
this
God, yeah.
thing that looks like my wife?
I'm so scared to know, like, what Karen was doing as a demon, that, like, Bobby was like, this is the only option, is to stab her multiple times.
Like if you love a person that much, then as we've seen with the Winchesters, you really, really don't want to hurt them, even if they're doing bad things.
Yeah. We're gonna come back to Karen stuff in a later episode or two, probably 2 different specific episodes. We're gonna talk about Karen again, but, like, this is the first time we've even heard about her, so it's really, this is, like, an interesting, like,
Mhm.
layer
It's
to Bobby's
origin,
character, Bobby's origin story.
which we really not known really much at all about Bobby's history now.
Sam comes back and, like, Jeremy wasn't in his dorm, and Bobby's like, yeah, that bike accident story you told Dean absolutely did not happen. What actually happened was that Jeremy's dad beat him with a baseball bat in the head, like he was about to do to Sam in Bobby's dream. That's why he has this Charcot-Wilbrand syndrome, is because his dad beat him, which is horrible.
Yes, no one deserves that.
And then Bobby admits that Jeremy got his DNA because Bobby went to go interview him and had a beer. And Dean's like, well, that can happen to anybody because he already did it. So neither of them are supposed to sleep. And so then the episode cuts 2 days later, and Dean is cranky as fuck. Like, should
So
not be
grumpy.
driving.
No.
Sam and Dean are in the car, and they're on the phone with Bela and Bobby.
Dean should not be driving.
No,
Yeah,
that is
no.
one of the 6 T's. Tired is like the first of the 6 T's
Yeah.
of not driving. Just don't do it. Don't drive when you're tired. It's not safe.
I want to know though, is Sam, because Sam could still sleep, has Sam been like taking naps
Unclear.
in these 2 days? Because he doesn't seem as terribly like tired and cranky.
He doesn't seem as tired, and he says that Dean seems caffeinated, and he offers to drive, and Dean won't let him. That makes me think that maybe Sam has been sleeping a little bit.
I'd imagine it would be like the strategic thing to do would be for Sam to sleep so that then when it gets bad, he can keep them away.
Yeah.
Like they can rotate.
Yeah, Sam and Bella
That's what
are
I would
taking
do in
turns
that scenario.
sleeping and keeping them all awake.
Yeah, if this thing had lasted longer, I'm sure they would have gotten their hands on some black market Ritalin.
Probably. I feel like college Sam probably knew exactly where to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Bobby then asks Bella, like, why he's helping them, and she's like, I'm helping you because of Flagstaff, and, like, I totally forgot how this episode ended, so I was like, Bobby's expression is really weird. I'm like, I can't tell if he just doesn't remember anything, or if something bad happens that he's remembering, or what. We later find it's because he remembers Flagstaff, and he doesn't remember anything that would warrant Bella's help.
Which means she has an ulterior motive.
Yeah.
She does.
Dean decides that he's just like, fuck it, I'm gonna have a nap. And so I was like, like, that's a horrible idea. But if you really insist, then I'm going to take some dream root so that we can go into your dream at the same time. And like, that way when Jeremy comes for you, it'll be 2-on-1 and you just have to manage with me seeing into your head. So they fall asleep in baby and they get out to like investigate outside, and boom, there's Lisa with a picnic. It's the family that Dean's always wanted. And he clearly lies. He's like, I've never had this dream before. No, Dean, you have that dream every night and I will not be told otherwise.
Yeah, maybe
It's
this
so
is why.
domestic.
Maybe this
Yeah,
is why
this
he
is the
wasn't
thing.
really thinking about nightmares.
Well, and I also feel like it's not just like what your literal dreams have been. It's also just like what does your subconscious brain like want, or like it's just drawing from your subconscious. So even if he hasn't had this exact dream before, the domesticity of it, like we already know that's what he wants.
Well, because exact dreams look very different and they don't make quite as much sense.
Mhm.
So yeah, I agree with August. It's what your subconscious wants or thinks about.
Like, it's not even really about Lisa. Like, it's
No,
just like the
it's really
domestic.
not.
It's like, it's just so domestic. Like, we have to pick up Ben soon. Like, it's just like this little family and relaxing, having a picnic. And it's very interesting that Dean would want those things.
Yeah, it's just very opposite of hunting. It's very much
A picnic is very interesting later.
I'm thinking of a
Yes, it
specific
is.
episode.
Yeah.
it really is.
It's a choice. What, like, a picnic signifies something in particular in Supernatural, and it is like this like domestic life. But Dream a Little Dream of Me plays over this Lisa picnic scene because, you know, it had to play once in this episode. This is the only time that the dreams are not like horrifying.
Right.
But Jeremy's there and the boys are chasing after him and they get separated. So Dean is then in like what looks like a motel and Sam is still in the actual woods. Not to bring up the Winchesters again, but I'm gonna bring up the Winchesters again. Dean is walking down this hallway and all the doors, and it reminds me of season 1, episode 5 of the Winchesters. Let's never mind. I'm putting that season on there in hopes that, you know, someday in the future someone's listening to this and there are multiple seasons of the Winchesters.
Fingers crossed.
In that episode, Mary has to face her worst, like, memory fear thing. And, like, I'm guessing that they borrowed a lot of inspiration from this episode of Supernatural, even though, like, the monster in that episode is not this thing at all. It has nothing to do with Dreamroot. It's just interesting. It's interesting that they were, like, a very similar set as well.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. It's
I
absolutely
was
true.
watching it today. I was like, wow, that scene looks familiar, except for this time, at least the walls exist. Unlike in that episode of the Winchesters where they're walking down a hallway and they have to go through doorways, even though the doorways are surrounded by walls that are falling down, not doing its job as a door. But Dean is then back in their motel room from Pittsburgh, where they were when Bobby was in the hospital, and there's another Dean waiting for him, and this was supposed to be John, but JDM wasn't available, but it should have been John. Like, I think where they ended up going with this is great, but we could have had John.
Oh, I think if this confrontation is with John, I think,
Dean has less control of his dream than he anticipated, so he can't wake up, and his other self is really freaking mean. It's just mean about every aspect of Dean's life, honestly. And Sam thinks he wakes up, but he's back in the Impala. But when he like goes to wake Dean up, at first I was like, oh, Dean's not waking up because Dean's, you know, confronting himself. And no, it's actually Jeremy, but not Dean. And Jeremy says that Dr. Greg tried to cut him off from the dream room, and he really needed it in his own mind, and he just wants to be left alone so he can like dream. But Sam's like, I can't do that because, you know, you killed somebody, and that's like usually the threshold for the boys as to when something needs to be stopped.
If you're just hanging out, doing drugs, and having dreams, then you're fine. But if you murder someone so you can do the drugs...
Well, Andy is the example of this. I'm like, they're like, Andy, you know what? If you're just fucking around, like, mostly just getting high and, you know, occasionally doing some light crime, like, we don't really care. It's the murder part that we have an issue with.
Yeah, if you kill someone, we're gonna come back, and we're gonna be mad about it.
And that's why we fought against your evil twin, Andy.
Yeah, exactly.
But Dean's trying to wake up, and his other self is saying that Dean has not a single thing of his own. The things that he likes are things that John liked, and his attachment to Sam is because of not so much his attachment to Sam, but his like frontification of Sam is because of John, and his internal narrator is John, and John loved Sam more than him, and he's just like daddy's boy instrument and a soldier, and couldn't have an original thought if he tried. And Dean gets a little angry, and he does the thing that I always hope that Dean will do in this kind of scenario. And he yells that he didn't deserve to be treated the way that John treated him, and he doesn't deserve to go to hell. And then he shoots his mean other self in the chest and kills him, which would be great if the other Dean would stay dead.
This big moment of like agency for him and like actually really being explicit about like, I didn't deserve to be parented the way I was.
Yeah, and it's the thing that he always said he looked up to Sam for doing, was for standing up and getting angry, and he just never felt like he could do it. And in this moment, he does it. And he did it as well in the episode where John died, but John couldn't hear him because Dean was ghostly in that moment. But like, he did get angry with John, and like, it's just, I just wish Dean could have a minute where he sat his parents down and got angry to their faces where they could actually hear him.
He never gets to have the moment that Sam does of like yelling at John before he goes to Stanford.
I also just want to touch on something. It's kind of like the only thing I don't agree with when it comes to this exchange, which is the idea that John loves Sam more than Dean. I take pretty large issue with that statement. I think that this is coming from Dean's own internal monologue, and that's
John treated them differently, and so I think that's where
different.
Dean's getting that.
John has this unique ability where he deprives each child of the thing that they most need and gives it to the other child. So like, Dean is forced to know everything about hunting and like engage with John on like a equal level. Like, they're treated as equals even though Dean's a child and John's the parent. John treats Dean like a parent and like a coworker and like a hunter at a young age, and Sam is excluded from that when Sam wants to be involved as a child and wants information, and John won't tell him. And Dean wants John to protect him the way that he protected Sam.
Yeah, they both. I think it's totally
bad.
fair.
They're both bad. Yeah, and I see how Dean sees that as loving Sam more than him. I just think that a lot of people think that Sam is coddled, and I do think that.
Oh, I don't think that's the case at all. I do think that John, like the particular way that John treats Sam, is better than he treats Dean. Like in a I think it is like it's
more neglect and less just like straight up abuse.
Yeah, and so I think like that. I don't think. Yeah, I also would take issue with like the idea that John like coddled Sam, because that's absolutely not the case. I think that
John honestly treats Sam, from what we've seen in the show, with like a level of indifference. Like, all of Sam's care falls onto Dean, and John just doesn't have to deal with Sam. And when he does have to deal with Sam, he's so annoyed in every instance, whether it's in his journal or just in the way that John speaks about the way that Sam grew up. Like, it just seems like he's always like, why couldn't you just like not want this other thing? Like, why can't you just cooperate and do what we want you to do? But like, in terms of like caring, he doesn't have to care for Dean because he's parentified Dean. And Sam, who needs caring for, he's just passed that off to Dean. Like, he's just kind of like not participating in raising Sam.
Yeah, like I can understand why Dean would think that means he loves Sam more, because it's been so ingrained to him that the most important thing is Sam for him. And so I can see why he would internalize that and be like, okay, so Sam's the most important thing. I'm clearly not as important. Like,
and that's parentification. Like the whole, if you're a parent, like you're supposed to prioritize your kid above everything else. And that's seen as a sign of love. So like, he's like, oh, John didn't take care of me. He made me take care of Sam. Obviously that means Sam's the center of this family.
I also think like the parentification of Dean is also really interesting when you consider the fact that John has suspected for some amount of time that Sam could end up evil. Like John is checked out of raising Sam so that he doesn't have to love Sam, so he doesn't have to care so much if Sam's evil. Like, he's put that on Dean. Dean loves Sam because Dean takes care of Sam.
Yeah, I think the reality is John doesn't like.
I don't think John really like loves either of his children. I don't think he's really capable of it.
Yeah.
At the point, like, I don't know. I think John was capable of loving his kids, and then Mary died, and
he made choices that.
Yeah, I don't think he was ever
love.
really ready after that to like allow himself to really love either of them. After that, like, losing Mary was very painful, and he doesn't want to love anyone else. And like, if you don't want to love anyone, like, you just are not open to it. Anyway, I just want to say that I understand why he thinks that, but I don't think that John loves Sam more. I just don't think John loves either of them. I think he loves them as much as he can. He's just not capable of love, which is bleak, honestly.
There's a song in Gallivant that goes, "I love you as much as someone like me can love anyone."
Yeah.
But Dean, like other Dean, wakes up as a demon and tells Dean that he can't escape himself, can't escape death or hell. He's gonna become a demon eventually. Eventually. We might have to wait longer than we currently anticipate, but it'll happen. It's a promise.
Spoilers.
Jeremy is done with like Sam, and he says, "In the dream, I can do anything I want." And Sam goes, "Yeah, I also took dream root. That's how I got here, and that means I can do anything that I want." And I think that what Sam does will save his life in this moment, which is always like my preferred thing. That Sam Winchester saves his own life and he doesn't die. That is my preference. It's incredibly cruel what he does.
Yeah.
John Winchester is a bad parent. I definitely believe that he hit the kids, but I think that like a neglectful parent is different than like the type of abusive parent that Jeremy had, because Sam conjures up Jeremy's dad, the one who beat him with the baseball bat.
Well, I think about like Max in season 1 and like the conversation that Sam and Dean have about John in that episode where they say,
do not consider their like upraising to be abusive the way that like Max's is clearly abusive, and like
and they recognize that it could have gone that way. They recognize that a slightly different experience could have led that way for them.
And it definitely like the way that John raised them absolutely was abusive, but like it's different than like someone who will beat a child with a baseball bat for no apparent reason. Like that is very different than like neglect, chronic neglect. We are not excusing John Winchester, but I just Sam maybe, I mean, he's in a fight for his life, but I think that he maybe could have found another way to solve this problem.
Yes, it was very uncomfortable to watch the
It
solution.
felt really cruel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like needlessly cruel.
Yeah.
Like I feel like there were other ways to deal with him.
Yeah, my note just says, "Shit, Sam, that's heavy."
It's fighting dirty.
Sam is the one who hits Jeremy before his father can, and Dean is in a fight with himself, and they both wake up this time for real. And then we're at the motel, and Sam and Bobby are chatting about Sam's dream weaving, and Bobby's like, "Was that the dream root, or was that your psychic thing?" And that caught me off guard. I forgot the conversation happened, because Sam has been claiming all season that he can't do any of his psychic stuff anymore. He's been saying all season that ever since Yellow Eyes died, like, I don't have the dreams, I don't have the headaches, like, that's all gone.
That's so
and Sam's
boring.
like, "I'm pretty sure I did that with the reboot." And Bobby's like, "Okay, just checking." But I was like, that's an interesting thing to bring up.
I've always kind of been of the mind with this that it's Sam's psychic abilities at least heighten his ability to
He said before that this required practice, and Sam has not had practice. This is his second dream root experience.
But he has had practice and experience with psychic abilities. So I've kind of always just sort of taken it as it's connected to that.
Yeah, and his psychic abilities were very flexible and not well defined. So we can file this under the maybe psychic category for sure. Bella's already bailed, which Dean's like, "That's weird." And Bobby's like, "It was weird that she was here at all, because what happened in Flagstaff is that I gave her a really good deal on an amulet. It was not worth the amount of help that Bela was attempting to be to us." And he's like, "You better check your pockets. Like, you probably got robbed if Bella's here for no apparent reason." Especially because she said no at first. And she has cleaned out the safe, including the Colt, which is bad news. The Colt is in the wind, never to be seen again. Or, at least not for several seasons, because that's how this show works. Dean's like, "We need to go hunt her down right now." But they stopped to have a little heart-to-heart first, because that's what Sam and Dean do. Sam's like, I definitely saw nothing when I was in your head. Like, we were separated. And Dean's like, "Cool, I was just looking for you, and I definitely didn't see anything either. We're not going to talk about this. Not going to mention any of that big confrontation he had with Sam." And they got in the car, and Dean does stop, though, to take a moment to tell Sam that he doesn't want to die or go to hell. And Sam's like, "Okay, cool. Well, then we're going to save you then. As long as you want to be safe, we're going to figure it out." And then Dean has like a little flashback to his memory of himself as a demon, and the episode just kind of ends there. And aside from the way that we get hit with Demon Dean at the end, just Dean saying out loud the words to Sam that he doesn't want to die was something that Sam needed so badly. And I'm so glad it only took us 10 episodes to get here. We had this fight like last time that Catherine Humphreys wrote in Fresh Blood, which was 3 episodes ago, was when Sam had the big like, "You need to stop like pretending that you're fine with this and just like accept that it's bad, so I can just spend some time with my brother before you die. Like, I just need you to act like my brother." I'm so glad it took 3 more episodes. for Dean to be like, oh, I don't want to die. But that's what the episode ends. So we're going to go right into our end segments, and we're going to start off with MVP of the week.
I am going to... maybe a funny thing. I'm going to go with Bela, because ultimately, she shows up, she gets exactly what she wants, and she walks away. Like,
that is her MO, and I love her for it so
and you know
much.
what? She sees an opportunity, takes advantage of it. She comes out on top of this. No new trauma. She ends up with the colds. She screws the boys over.
Oh, yeah. She literally, this is how I imagine that things went from Bella's point of view. Jean called her, asked if she had any dream room, and she said, no, and why would I help you? And she hung up on him. And he was like, okay, cool, fine, whatever. And then Bela got me a little spirit board, and some spirit was like, by the way, Dean Winchester has the colds. And she was like, oh shit, I'm gonna go get that.
Change of plans.
And she was like, yeah, never mind. I guess I'll dig up some dream room and I'll bring it right over.
Yeah, and the fact that like they didn't even realize that she was planning on screwing them over until after she was long gone.
Like queen shit right there.
Yeah. I feel like they should have been way more suspicious of her in general. Like, just with everything they've gone through already. They were like, okay, cool, Bella's here.
They were worried about Bobby.
Men
and
are
it clouded
stupid
their
and
judgment.
horny.
They so are. Beth, who would you like to nominate as this week's most valuable person?
I guess I'm gonna nominate Sam, because I feel like he does most of the like legwork. Like, he figures out what the dream route even is and what it does.
All
Like,
the Jeremy stuff, except for the initial interaction, honestly.
like Dean would have still been dealing with his demon self if Sam hadn't figured out how to get out of the dream and like take care of Jeremy. So I think that Sam did, which is funny because like I feel like he wasn't really in the episode a ton. He was just doing background shit that made everything work.
Yeah, he wasn't involved in Dean's big like demon Dean confrontation. He wasn't involved in helping Bobby at all.
No.
Like, he was on
Sam
the
has no
side.
emotional consequences in this episode. He just like does all the plot shit.
Yeah.
Sam's big problem in this episode is that Bobby almost died, that Dean's been awake for 2 days, and that he has sex dream with Bella. Those are Sam's big.
Yeah.
Except for
MVP
Sam,
is
honestly.
Sam, but we're minusing the sex dream. That was weird. We're gonna
Yeah.
pretend that doesn't exist.
Nah.
Meredith, who would you like to nominate?
I was also gonna say Sam.
Yeah, perfect.
I am a very big fan of when Sam is creepy, so I had to vote for him.
I am going to nominate Dean as my MVP, mostly just because he woke Bobby up. I thought that was an important thing that happened, and Sam wasn't able to do it, so.
Yeah, Dean deserves
Emotional
some
breakthrough.
recognition.
Yeah.
He has an emotional breakthrough in this episode that's a big deal.
Yeah, and
I almost
thought
picked Dean
it was
for
really
that.
brave.
Yeah.
I thought that him facing his like other self and like yelling and like standing up for himself, I thought that was brave. I was like, yeah, that's my baby. Usually Sam's my baby, but just this once, Dean, you can be.
You're doing okay today, Dean. You deserve a treat.
Bechdel test. 2 named women in this episode? No.
No.
Just Bella. Unless the lab assistant had a name that I didn't think she had. But either way, they wouldn't have talked to each other, so it's still a no.
Yep.
Which means so far we've passed once this season, twice this season. It's fine.
Cool.
And we're 10 episodes in.
Yeah, we're 10 out of 16 episodes in. It's fine. It's fine. Case of the week, dream walking. I'm gonna guess it's super old and from many cultures. Does anyone have anything for this?
I googled African dream
No.
root and it exists.
Okay, cool. Great.
You probably can't make potions that work like these ones with it. I'm just going to go out on a limb and just
I
assume
think-
that.
Next time an African dream root comes up, we'll talk more about it, I'm sure.
I know that dreams have a lot of significance in many cultures and mythologies.
Yeah, I thought that might be a difficult one to like narrow down.
And like you said, there'll be more opportunities to talk about
Yeah.
Yeah.
this specifically.
So that brings us to highlight and low light. Beth, do you have a low light and a highlight for this episode?
I mean, I don't know. I think the low light is just like such trauma that Bobby goes through, like
So
having to
bad for
see his
Bobby.
wife. Right. I can't even imagine like how that would make you feel. And then the highlight, I don't know. I guess when the boys are talking about Bella and like I just like how they're like on the same brain wavelengths.
Yeah, they put that together really quickly, honestly. Almost as quickly as the scratch tickets, but not quite.
Not quick enough to
Not quick
actually
enough
make
to
a
see
difference
her.
for Bella.
Yeah, and not quick enough to see her driving away. So she was long gone. She got in and out on clean margins this time. Meredith, how about you?
Okay, so low light is Sam's weird sex dream.
Fair.
Highlight would be, I guess, learning more about Bobby, because I didn't enjoy his trauma, but I did enjoy expanding him so that he has more of his own story and making him more than a mentor figure.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. We've had Bobby since the end of season 1, and this is the first backstory we've had on Bobby, aside from used to know John. And like, I'm just thinking like other people we met, like Gordon or Ellen and Joe, like we got backstory, like maybe if it wasn't like right when we met them, like it was within an episode or two. So it's interesting that we've had so many episodes where Bobby's been present and had no backstory on him. It was about time.
Mm-hmm.
And August, how about you?
I think Lola is, Sam using Jeremy's trauma against him. I just don't love it. Necessary maybe, but I don't love it.
Yeah.
And highlight is Dean metaphorically and literally shooting his inner demons. I think that's a really good moment for him. It's a big character shift. And I think also Jensen's acting in that scene like is just really good. Like he manages to do a lot physically in his movement and in his like stance to convey these two parts of himself.
My I don't know why I didn't say this in the recap, but my one complaint with that scene is that I think that they could have dressed the two Deans differently. They were wearing identical outfits, and that was fine when they were just yelling at each other because like one Dean was mean and the other Dean was not. But like once they started physically fighting one another, it became difficult to tell which Dean was which. And I'm just saying, like, we get that they're both Dean. You could dress one in a different jacket.
He has more than one.
Yeah, we've seen him wear almost a different jacket every episode, except for the times that they repeat either the green shirt or the red shirt.
I think the leather jacket
would have been a good time.
Would have been a good, symbolically, would have been a good choice to have one of them in a leather jacket. And really either of them, because,
we haven't seen the leather jacket in a hot
and
second.
This is before it's disappeared.
Yeah,
like, it disappears.
Disappearance. So unclear. But yeah, that would have been a great outfit choice, and it would have made it easier for me to tell which Dean was which when they were in a physical fight. My low light was also Sam's sex dream. I think sex dreams are a totally normal thing to have happen, but this one was just like secondhand embarrassment that didn't provide any plot. If it had served a purpose beyond just like the one funny scene that wasn't that funny, where Bela like actually shows up, like okay, but it just genuinely did not serve any plot purpose in this episode, and like Sam and Bela don't make any sense whatsoever. Have had no chemistry up to this point. It just didn't work for it on any reason, any level. My highlight is when Bobby wakes up and Dean is visiting him and he's like asking about Karen, and I just thought it was very nice that Dean followed up on that thing that he saw that was really private and was like, hey, I just saw this really private thing and I just have a few questions, like please share with me if you're comfortable. And I just thought that was nice. Call CPS. Clearly, as always, we're calling on John for the description of all the horrible upbringing that Dean had, thanks to other Dean yelling about it. Jeremy's dad, I wish we didn't live in a world where beating a child with a baseball bat sounded like a plausible thing that could happen, but get him out of here.
I'm wondering what happened after that.
It's unclear. I mean, they said that he died when Jeremy was a kid, but there was no mention of if that was around the time of the baseball bat incident, if it was related to the baseball bat incident. No idea.
You know, who raised him afterwards, like if he had any other family or if he was in the foster system,
or if he continued to be raised by the man who beat him with a baseball bat.
you know that
important questions.
Yep,
that we have no answers to.
That's why we write fan fiction. As
always, anytime that we're talking about calling CPS on John, I do have to say, Bobby, that was you. You're the one who was supposed to make that call. And because you didn't, a little bit call CPS on you, just a little bit. I'm also saying you also could have just shot John and killed him, and no one would ever find out.
You're a hunter. Accidents happen.
Yeah, they do happen. That's how Joe lost her dad.
Yeah, the kids were kids, and no one really likes John anyway. And
though, let's maybe not traumatize the children with that. Like, he could go to jail. That would be also fine.
Yeah.
He could just like not have custody. That would actually be, in a lot of ways, that's the ideal situation.
Yeah, that's true.
So prison also, if
we murder him,
we just need him to not have custody of those children.
Yeah.
If he dies, then they have the chance to put him on a pedestal and forget how awful he was.
Yeah, I'm just saying, you can have to shoot him anywhere where the kids never have to know about it.
But then they have to, I still think
John could just leave one day and not come back, and they could just live in Bobby's forever. I'm just saying, Bobby.
That's also a huge trauma, though, KJ. I think them knowing where he is, knowing that he just doesn't have custody, is actually the best option.
I think you're right.
Dad's on a hunting trip, and he hasn't been home in a few decades.
Voluntarily relinquishing custody and sending a postcard every once in a while sounds very nice, actually.
Yeah,
and very manageable for John. Like, I'm in this town. I'm stopping to get food, and I'll just send the kids a quick postcard on my way.
Here I am.
Like that.
It's
vampire
manageable
hunt.
for John, but like, would he let it happen?
No, because he's insanely jealous of Bobby being their
Yeah.
father, which is how we all ended up here in the first place. We should have. Anyway, long story short, Jeremy and John both should have CPS called on them, and hopefully, like after Jeremy's death, him with the baseball bat, CPS was called, or whatever the like 1980s version of CPS would have been. I guess it would have been 90s at that point. Jeremy is supposed to be in college. He just happens to look the same age as Sam and Dean, who are out of college. Firing squad, people who did not perform their job duties as should have been required. I feel like the doctors just kind of shrugged when Bobby came in. They're like, I don't know what I wanted them to do any differently, but they just, we are baffled by this medical mystery and we shall do nothing about it.
We'll put him on life support.
They have, I don't know. I don't know if I want them to do something, but they could have just like been like, we're gonna research XYZ, just like some plan of action of some sort. And also, I hadn't thought about it until August brought it up, but like also, yes, the police should have been called to investigate comatose man.
This person, especially someone who's come into town, like someone who doesn't have any connections in this town. Like,
Unidentified
who's a stranger
comatose
who's
man.
walked in town, who's in a motel, who goes comatose. Like, ask more questions.
It's
Any
weird.
Unknown man drives into town, becomes unexplainably like comatose. Like the doctors can't find any reason why he's in a coma. He's just in a coma. It should be someone's job to look into that. Somebody should have that job of like investigating that, be it the police or someone at the hospital or like call the CDC. I don't know, but somebody should be doing something. Other than that, I feel like everyone was fine. Good on the maid. I want to say like anti-firing squad on the maid who like realized something was up with Bobby and called for help because she was just like gonna leave and then like had a bad feeling about it.
Yes, she deserves a raise.
Yes, give her a raise.
She probably has to put up with a lot of terrible things.
Yeah, also a day off because I'm sure that was traumatizing.
Oh yeah.
Oh, shit.
Maybe like a week off if we can manage it.
Yeah.
Can we get like a therapist appointment just like real quick?
Yeah, she needs to really debrief this.
Yeah, that was
traumatic thing.
probably upsetting. Speaking of upsetting, mental health check. I'm not a psychologist, and this segment is based purely on my own opinions. And a weekly reminder: if you're struggling with anything at all, please reach out for help, preferably to a professional. This week specifically designed to be bad for mental health, and I think that actually made it a great week for mental health. Dean and Bobby were forced to confront some of their inner demons
In actually like pretty healthy ways. At least,
I mean, yeah, like
for supernatural at least.
not ideal, but like everybody's still alive, so that's good. I get why they separate Sam out from Dean in these two dream scenarios, but I think that Sam should have come face to face with demonized Dean. I think that would have been good for Sam as well. That reality check, I think, is something Sam still needs. But also, like, Sam just has no emotional impact, so he's like fine. Even though he was like, he started off this episode like getting drunk and like being really mopey, and like not having a good time.
He bounces back very quickly.
Yeah, he bounces back really quickly as soon as he's presented with Bobby's
with an actual problem he can actually solve.
And also, like, I don't know how, like, many times we can penalize Sam for being upset that Dean's gonna die. Like, that's a natural thing to be upset about. Like, I think getting drunk and being a little bit mad at Dean and mad at the situation is totally not an unhealthy thing. Like, he's not blackout drunk, he's just, like, a little bit tipsy at 2 PM, and that's allowed. But yeah, I feel bad for Bobby, and I feel like Bobby's privacy was a little bit violated in this episode, because Dean, like, saw this whole thing with Karen happening. But otherwise, like, I think it was probably maybe good for Bobby to, like, have the agency to wake up from that and, like, have shared that with someone, even if it wasn't exactly his choice to share it.
Someone who's going to get it too, who's also not going to blame him, who's going to be like, you did the best you could, like, you did not think you had any other options, and who's not going to judge him for it. Yeah,
and then I honestly think that Dean needed that confrontation with himself, so it designed to be bad for mental health, ended up being good for mental health. Soul transactions, there were none. Sam's traumatic brain injury, very narrowly avoided, and Sam's fine. He got real close like twice, but he pulled through without getting knocked out completely. Name that episode. Anybody have any name suggestions for this episode?
The one with the acid trips. Multiple.
I'm really bad on the spot.
No, it's okay. That is fine. I had the one where Bobby takes a nap.
Just a little nap.
Just a little nap. Yeah. August, you have a suggestion?
Don't.
That's okay. We don't need.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. And Beth, if you don't have anything, that's fine too. No, that's okay. That's okay.
Sorry, I didn't think about this in advance, or I would have. I forgot that this was it.
That's fine. That brings us to our very last segment of the week, and that is line of the week. August, you have a line of the week. Would you like us to go to Beth while you think about it?
Yes, that would be great.
I feel like I know what Beth says, but Beth,
I was actually going to choose a different one so that I didn't can say it for a third time. When Dean says my father was an obsessed bastard, I think that was a great line to be.
Honestly, very satisfying to hear from Dean Winchester. Nothing in this show makes me more angry than Sam or Dean. Like, in particular, Sam, because Sam was so vocal about being angry with John when John was alive. Like, them just, like, in retrospect, being like, John was fine.
Yeah, the apologism from them. I'm like, no, he wasn't.
Stop.
It drives me crazy. I'm like, please stay mad. Like, forgive John if that's what you need to do to make yourself feel
For
better.
your sake.
But, like, don't pretend that it was fine.
Right.
Yeah. No excuses. Don't excuse him.
Exactly. Meredith, do you have a line of the week?
Same as Beth's, actually. I like that whole scene.
Fair.
I'm gonna go with, come on, you can tell me, Angelina Jolie, Brad Pitt. Because I think that's
nice.
funny. The sex dream scene aside, that is a funny part of it.
Yes,
The legitimately funny part of it.
And we love the inclusivity of, just
Little bi moment.
Yeah, allowing Sam and Dean both to dream about whichever celebrities they would like, whichever 2008 celebrities they would like.
Right.
I don't even know who you would say now. Like, who would have, like, who in, like, 2022, or I guess it's 2023 now, who in 2023 is, like, the Angelina Jolie, Brad Pitt couple that you would pick to ask that question?
I have no idea, because Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt are still really good looking.
Still really good looking. No longer a couple, but...
Yeah, that's true. No longer a couple, but at least you got your looks.
My line of the week was the, like, Bela, we have to call Bela interaction, because it was great. But yeah, that's it for this week. Meredith, where can people find you?
In their dreams.
Call up Meredith. She'll appear in your subconscious.
Yes, exactly. I won't do anything you want me to. You can find me at Shades of Dayanira on Tumblr, Instagram, and sometimes TikTok. And if you go there, you'll see lots of really cool drawings for the fantasy series I'm writing.
Excellent. And August, where can people find you?
You can find my Supernatural podcast at Saving People Queering Things. And you can find my personal, like, fandom, screamy Tumblr and Twitter at Astral Spock.
Excellent. And Beth, where can people find you?
You can find me, Raising Perdition is the Supernatural podcast, and then on all platforms, I'm Beth Loves Cast, so Twitter, TikTok, all that.
Yes, only 6 more episodes between now and when we meet cast.
Yeah.
Gosh,
I think
so
eight.
exciting.
Track.
I think 8 or 9 episodes of this podcast, but like 6 recap episodes. Between now and cast. We're almost there. But yeah, next week we are going to be recapping season 3, episode 11, Mystery Spot. So tune back in for that, so we can watch Jim Winchester die a bunch of times, as we all love to do.
I've been KJ, and this has been Supernatural Opinions. If you enjoyed our show, the best thing you can do is subscribe on your podcast app of choice and tell a friend. Check out our link tree in the episode description for all of our social media and any other Supernatural-related projects we might be working on. Send us an email. Our address is supernaturalopinionspodcast@gmail.com, or reach out directly at KJ, at @KJ on all platforms. Thank you to Joe Veretta for our theme song, and our logo was created by Faith Ebert of faithanddesigns.ca. The episode was recorded, edited, and produced by me, Ed and KJ. If you want to hear more from me, you can check out my other podcast, Series of Opinions. And last but not least, a huge thank you to all of our guests.